Hello again, everybody. We have a chance to visit with really a treasure here in Milwaukee and a national treasure for the game of baseball. Longtime Milwaukee Brewers broadcaster and Hall of Famer, Mr. Bob Uecker. How you doing, Uecker? 50-plus years behind the mic for the Brewers. How do you do it?
It's been a long time. A lot of people, when I was a player, wished I would have been a broadcaster way back when. But no, it's been a great ride here, and part of the ride is the trips we used to take up to Seattle when the Brewers were in the American League, and Dave Niehaus was your partner, and I keep thinking of some of those days. I used to stay out on Whidbey Island, where I could go salmon fishing. And I had to really watch it so I didn't miss the ferry back and forth, because if you did,
you were
staying. Yes, you were staying on Whidbey Island. But no, those days in Seattle, and even when they were a Pacific Coast League team. That's how far I go back. But no, Seattle was always a good memory place for me, and the whole thing of becoming a broadcaster, because it was something that I had never done before. And the story about the broadcasting thing, Rick, was when Bud Selig was prior to his job as the commissioner, he was in New York, and I was doing the New York Writers' Dinner. I was traveling around and started doing appearances and doing my dumb stuff that got me on a couple of Tonight shows. But
you had more appearances with Johnny Carson than anybody.
They said it was 100. I don't know if it was or not. But anyway, we had a good time all the time. But anyway, I was doing the New York Writers' Dinner, and Bud asked me to go out after the dinner. He wanted to talk to me. So I said, yes, absolutely. So we went out and walked around New York, the streets of New York, and he asked me if I'd like to come back to Milwaukee, because he had purchased the Brewers baseball team at that time, which were
From the Pilots.
Exactly. Formerly up in Seattle, and wanted to know if I would come back and work as a broadcaster, which I said absolutely, and I did. And I had never done any of that before. And when I finally came back here, Rick, I was working with two guys. One was Merle Harmon, who I'm sure you remember, and then another guy named Tom Collins. And I did only the fifth inning, and they sat with me while I was on the air, because I had never done anything like this with baseball. So after about a half a season, we were in New York. We were playing the Yankees at Yankee Stadium. And Merle Harmon introduced me for the fifth inning. And when he did, they got up and they walked out of the booth. And I begged them to come back. And I had my finger on the cough switch, and I wasn't talking because I was scared to death. And I could see them standing outside of the broadcast booth, and they wouldn't come back in. So the engineer finally said, "Bob, you better start talking. There's one out." There was one out, and that was my introduction to doing play-by-play by myself, and I was scared to death. And I had already done a couple of national shows, the Tonight Show and stuff like that. That didn't bother me as much as doing play-by-play, because I was born and raised here in Milwaukee, and I kept thinking about my friends listening to me. Guys I went to school with, listening to me do play-by-play. That's what scared me more than anything else. And I got through that day, but when we go back, once in a while we go back and play it on the air. Here, I sound like the Chipmunks, man. It's terrible. It's awful.
You're in the Baseball Hall of Fame. I think one of the great lines you said at your Hall of Fame induction ceremony in your speech was, "I thought I should have been here as a player."
Well, all those guys sitting behind you.
And they were cracking up.
Oh, yeah. That was part of it, why I did it, because a lot of them that were there as members of the Hall of Fame as players, I played against them. I did play against them, so I knew who they were and what they did as players, and they were all great. And the thing that was really funny, Rick, George Bush Sr. Was sitting right out in front of me when I was on the microphone and doing my speech. The president was sitting right there in front of me, and he was laughing so bad. And then when I said that, when I talked about going in as a player, and I could hear those guys behind me and telling me, keep going, you know, and him out in front of me, I'm thinking, here's the president of the United States telling me that I belong in the Hall of Fame as a player. That was all part of it, but it's been a good run, and Bud Selig, who owned the club. You know what I keep thinking about, Rick, today? I think, I might be a couple of dollars off, but I think when Bud purchased the Pilots, I think the asking price at that time, now this is back in 1970 or 71, the asking price was $12 million. That's what he paid for the club at that time. We just gave Jackson Chourio a contract for $82 million for like 8 years or 9 years, and that's a bargain. I mean, today when we look at what's happened, not only in baseball but all sports, everything, it's a totally different package than anything that we could ever imagine back during my time as a player. I signed a contract. I joined the Army when I got out of high school. I didn't get out. They asked me to leave, and I said, "Can I finish?" They said, "No, we're asking you. Yeah, well, you got to go now." So I joined the service, and when I got out, I signed a contract with the Braves at that time for a very modest $3,000 bonus, which kind of aggravated my dad because he didn't have that kind of money to put out. But he scraped it up. But no, it was you know,
That line still works, Bobby.
It was really funny, you know. But the time in the minor leagues were treasured for me. Places I visited and played. I mean, it was such a great experience, and for all these years now to still be around here and being able to work, and I'm glad I'm working this series because I got a chance to visit with you guys again. I see you in spring training once in a while, but other than that, you know, to play a series like we're doing at American Family Field here is really cool.
I've got to ask you, you've seen everything there is to see in the game of baseball as a player in the 50s and the 60s, in the World Series, 1964. Yep. You've done everything. Tell me about the changes in the game of baseball that you've seen from the time you were playing to now.
Well, you know, the thing that I was just talking with Pat Murphy, who's the new manager of the Brewers, just a couple of minutes ago. We do his pregame show every day. We were talking about the amount of innings that players pitch today, where you were expected to work 9 innings, and pitchers back in my time as a player and even early broadcasting, everybody thought they were going to pitch 9 innings in the game, and you were expected to do that. Today, if you pitch 4 or 5, that's a quality start. I was just asking Murph this. I just asked him this tonight. You brought this up about how do we judge a player today for the Hall of Fame? I mean, the guys that are in there now, you know, every year they work 250, 275 innings, 300. The
38 starts.
Exactly. I don't know how we do that today. When you go to the Hall of Fame and you look at all these guys that are in there, and we're all getting a little, you know, long in the tooth. the people today that play the game today, because of the money that they make today, you don't have to hang around and play for 15 years or 18 years. Some guys played 20. You don't have to do that anymore because of the money, the salaries that players make today, which is, hey, it's great. I mean, the more you make and the better you are, hooray for you. But we didn't have multi-year contracts back then.
You had to get a job in the off season.
You did. I had a construction job. I worked for a company called Western Construction. The day after the season was over, I flew back home, and I went to work. That's the way you had to do it. But there was nothing wrong with it, not at all. You worked throughout the winter. You'd take maybe the final week before you went back to spring training again to start the next season. But we all did it. The only guys that didn't do it back then, Rick, were guys that were making, 30, 35,000 a year. That was major. That was really major. But those were the only guys that didn't have jobs throughout the winter, where they had to work. But it was the way the game was played, and I mean, it was the National League against the American League. There were no playoffs. There were no postseason playoffs.
Interleague was the World Series.
Exactly. That was it. You played. Against your league. There were no divisions. There was nothing like that. You played. We had 8 teams in the American League and 8 teams in the National League, and you won your league, and then postseason started right after that. I know you remember some of the cold Octobers that baseball had to be played, and the World Series. It was tough, but that was the game. That's all you knew. That was the only way we played was you win your league and the other guys win their league, and you play the World Series.
This man is 90 years young, still looking great, buddy, and feeling great. How long do you want to keep doing this, buddy?
Well, I don't know. The ownership here, they've been great to me. I can do what I want. That's what they tell me. But I enjoy coming to the ballpark, Rick. Coming to the park every day and being around the players, being around the guys. They still treat me like I'm one of the team. That's the way they treat me. Anything they can do to make things more comfortable for me. If I couldn't do this, I would not do it. If I couldn't do it and do it right and do it the way I've always done it, I wouldn't do this. I wouldn't embarrass myself or embarrass the Brewers. I would never do something like that. But I still work. There's a company here now doing a film on kind of my life, and they've been out here at the ballpark all summer. Last year, spring training, they're winding things up, and it'll be out probably maybe by the end of the year or next summer. But it's been a fun project. And, the fishing trips, I did a fishing tournament here for about 17 years where all the players would be involved. I mean, the Bucks, the Packers, the Brewers, we would do this fishing tournament to benefit Make-A-Wish, the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Anything charity-wise, Wounded Warriors. Stuff like that is what I get a bigger kick out of. And whatever I do, that's where any money ends up for me to charity, because there's a lot of people that need help. And if I can do anything to benefit them, I do it, and I keep doing this because it benefits them, and I can do it and do it at a respectable piece of time. I enjoy being up in the booth with the guys, seeing you guys, seeing visitors come in here. I don't do the road trips anymore. Traveling, it's time for new people, to get a couple of new guys in here to work and to do the traveling and but to do that, I enjoy once in a while going on a road trip too, and it's it's beneficial for me. The only reason I don't travel too much anymore, there's still people living who saw me play, and I don't want to get beat up anymore. But I still enjoy that. I really do. I enjoy, so you do it. You're doing it. You go to cities and people for 25, 30, 40 years that you've been around. And it's great to see them, isn't it? I mean, it's great. I don't know why. Like I said, when I got to 90 in January, I finally made my batting average. I got bad. I finally got there, man.
What do you remember about Dave Niehaus?
Well, he was he's a heck of a broadcaster for one thing, but the fun. I think the fun times that I had with you guys, each and every time we came to Seattle. Stories, whether they're true or made up. We were just talking about a story about Seattle. I had a grand slam home run off of a guy named Ron Herbel, okay? So Ron Herbel was a pitcher with the Giants. And after my post-baseball stuff started, I was doing a Tonight Show one night, and I was telling Johnny brought it up about this grand slam home run that I hit. And I said, yeah, I hit it off a guy named Ron Herbel. I said, and when Herman Franks, who was the Giants manager, was coming out to take him out of the game after I hit the home run, he had Ron Herbel's suitcase packed. He was carrying his suitcase, had all of his clothes packed already and everything. So we're up in Seattle playing. Now I'm broadcasting now, and one of your security people came in, and he said, Bob, there's a guy out here says he knows you. His name is Ron Herbel. He wants to come and see you. I said, yeah, absolutely, bring him in. So Herbel comes in. So we shoot the breeze for a while. Now he says, could I ask you a favor? I said, absolutely. He said, well, when you talk about the home run you hit, do you have to say it was a grand slam? I said, no, I'll take care of that. I won't say it was a grand slam anymore. But it was embarrassing to him that I hit the grand slammer off of him, so he asked me to stop talking about it being a grand slam. So I told him I would, but I didn't. I used to talk about that all the time.
Hey, you did it.
Oh yeah, it was. I all those things. The more ignorant I could make it, and the things that happened. I remember one home run I hit. This did happen. The Cardinals. I got to the dugout and they were all laying on the floor. They were laying there. They didn't get up either. I had one Dodger home run that I hit, or plate appearance that I was going to make, and it was against Sandy Koufax. And I said I looked on the Dodger bench, and they were sitting there in their street clothes with 2 outs. So I knew things were kind of over, But all that kind of stuff, if I thought it was going to make people laugh, I enjoyed doing that. It's just, if I ever had a good year, it would have really screwed up my career. A couple times I had to back off. I got off to a good start and I had to stop. Yeah.
You had a great career. If you could describe your career as a player and a broadcaster all these years in a sentence or two, how would you describe Bob Uecker's wonderful life in the game of baseball?
You're kidding. You're kidding.
3 sentences.
You're kidding. No, all the time that I talked about the World Series. I got traded that winter to St. Louis. We end up the next year winning the World Championship, you know, and Cardinals had asked me to do them a big favor in their quest for a championship, and I said absolutely, and they wanted to inject me with hepatitis, and I said yes, so they could bring up another player. Absolutely, you bet. And I just turned a beautiful color of yellow and that white home uniform. I really looked good. I really did.
Oh my goodness! This guy caught baseballs in the outfield in batting practice with a tuba before a World Series game. If you want to read a great book, it's called Catcher in the Rye, W-R-Y, by Bob Uecker. I read it many years ago as a kid, and you are a treasure here in Milwaukee and the game of baseball. You're in the Hall of Fame. We all love you. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep making us laugh and entertaining the fans here throughout the game of baseball.
Gotcha.
Bob Uecker, we love you.
Thank you, Rick. Good to see you again, and I'm really glad I came to the ballpark today. I mean, I was going to do the series, but when I saw it was going to be Seattle, there was no way I was going to miss this. I knew I was going to be around here and get to see you. So, yeah, I miss Dave Niehaus, and he's a great friend, and all those trips to Seattle and my time out on Whidbey Island and the salmon run and everything else that happened out there, man, it was, you know, when I think about if really, and me and you talked about this a little while ago, if I ever had a good year, it really screwed things up for me, you know, because I make fun of what happened, and this was a story. My first year in the big leagues, I had a pretty decent year at AAA. I was in Louisville, and I had a pretty decent year, and I got the contract from the Braves at that time, and here in Milwaukee, and it was for the minimum, which was $7,500. So I thought because of the year that I had, I deserved a little bit more. So instead of sending the contract back, I'm going to go down to the stadium, which was County Stadium, which was right here on the grounds of American Family Field. Anyway, I come down here, and John McHale was the general manager at that time. And I was scared to death. They brought me into his office, and he was on the telephone. And I don't think he was talking to anybody. He was doing it to make me nervous, which he did. And after about 10 minutes, he hung up, and he said, "Now, Bob, what can I do for you?" So I told him, I said, "You know, I hit 314 or whatever it was, close to that. And I thought I deserved a little bit more than the minimum." He told me that I had a heck of a year. He said, "You had a heck of a year, but you didn't help us up here." I said, "Yeah, you're right. See you in spring training." So I walked out, and that was it. Scared to death. But you know, there were no multi-year contracts. There were no power guys, except if you're talking about the Mantles and the Ted Williams and people like that. You know, DiMaggio and guys like that. That was during my time. But they were the marquee idols. You know, they were the guys that dictated what kind of salary you made. But it was different.
Well, on behalf of everybody in Seattle, Dave Niehaus, myself, and Kale,
Yeah.
the elevator operator
Yeah.
who love you. Hey, Mr. Uecker, how you doing? Did you like it, Kale?
That was beautiful. I think didn't he have a cast on his arm? I always thought he was training Falcons. I didn't know he had a bad arm.
Well, he loved you. We all love you. Keep doing what you're doing. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Hall of Fame broadcaster, Bob Uecker.